We are almost ready to just to get
Okay.
the YouTube up and right.
I'm on the site now.
I just had to put it on our website.
Oh,
You don't have to change our last name to say we done this to you. Well, no, the minutes, we do with 10 minutes, we had voted, so we would have been.
All right, we are good. We are good. We're all set, Mr. Pashowski.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. Would everyone please rise to pledge our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, Dick, can we have roll call?
Mr. Acker, Mr. Azar, Dr. Cadman. Here. Mr. Fleming. Mr. Medensky,
Here.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Here.
Mr. Robeson,
Here.
Mrs. Tierney. Here. Mrs. Pashowski,
Here.
7 present.
And can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
so move.
Second.
Do I have to talk about moving the item up in the agenda to get it approved?
So I think it's on there. It doesn't matter. exactly
Okay.
where, but
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Somebody said so moved.
Yeah, Warren said so moved and I seconded.
Yep.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
And can we have a motion to approve minutes from our June 2nd work session
So moved.
Second.
on the question? Roll call.
Dr. Cadman,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Do we have any board reports tonight?
Yeah, yes, the AEIO, we had our reorganization meeting this morning. We have a new member who is going to be in charge of our development, Mr. Tom Delaney Jr. So we are kicking off next month a summertime reach out to the community to reintroduce the AEIO, send letters out to parents in the district, also businesses that the district uses. So we are starting to get a huge initiative with getting the AEIO out there and noticed, and hopefully anyone that's interested, go on our website and you can make a donation or just learn what we do and all the funds that we need to enhance the education at the district. Dr. Fatale has agreed to support us and work with us, and she's been involved in some initiatives now. We got our AP course initiative all set. We're giving $3,000 to the high school for the fall for them to kick off helping students to pay for the expenses of the AP courses. So that's one of our babies that we just finished doing. So anyone that wants to join the AEIO or support us, please look on our website and you can make a donation. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And I don't believe we will have a student representative tonight. Dr. May and the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Pashowski. A few items. First, I want to commend Mr. Mirabelli and his office. We were able to receive a $90,000 FEMA grant. And while many of the grants we receive are just a matter of filling out paperwork and as a matter of form, not all districts are receiving the FEMA grant. It's about the most complex that we've run across, but they very much persisted, both Mr. Mirabelli and all of his staff. And we're very pleased that we finally, after months and months, received word that we're confirmed and receiving that grant. So thank you, Jim, for that very good work. I'd also like to call to the board's attention that on our agenda tonight, among many different items, is an agreement with Mansfield University. Upon approval, Abington Heights will be the first school district in our region to be able to partner with Mansfield University for our students to be able in the fall to take 100% free college courses through Mansfield that not only count should they graduate and go to Mansfield, but Mansfield's credits are highly transferable to all of the state schools, to Penn State, Pittsburgh, Temple, and many other places. So if approved again tonight, at no cost at all. And so if approved tonight, our students in the fall will be able to begin taking those courses for free, building up their credits. So as they move on to higher ed, they'll be doing it with the start. It's very consistent with our ongoing efforts to break the significant barriers that exist for students to achieve ultimately their goal of, in many cases, a baccalaureate degree. So we're very pleased to ask the board.
I just have a question about that.
Yes.
So are those courses taken outside of their Abington Heights educational day time?
Yes, as the program is currently structured, these are independent, students will be working on these independently. Now, if there's a study hall or if they have time at school, certainly they could use that time wisely and participate, but there's no set class or course, nor will at this point count toward graduation credits either. Okay. Also, Mr. Brochalski noted before, we have an item on the agenda tonight regarding masking. And I placed in board's folders just for your consideration a motion that would allow unvaccinated or partially vaccinated individuals to have the option to wear or not wear facial coverings outdoors. And if you recall at our last meeting, we said that fully vaccinated individuals would not have to wear a mask outdoors. We're now taking the next step to say that fully vaccinated people will not have to wear masks indoors. And again, that's just some thoughts that we put together as the next logical step forward. I think it's also fair to recognize that the summer is before us. There'll be lots of additional information coming out over the summer. We do have time to adjust our health and safety plan as the fall approaches, but I think we have taken very steady steps along the way in response to what we've learned and what we've seen to address the whole pandemic issue. And I think this is the next reasonable step along the way as we hope for a full reopening in the fall with as few restrictions as responsibly possible. And finally, last month or at our last meeting, the board spoke about pay-to-play sports and the whole issue of how we expand perhaps opportunities for our students. I want to inform the board that administration is working on a plan and recommendations for this that we hope to have prepared for our next meeting, and that I'll be sharing with the board in the very near future. And so, Mr. Brochalski, thank you for the opportunity, and that concludes my report.
Okay. At this time, we would invite any member of the public who wishes to address the board. Please fill out a card with your name and an address. And if you when you do address the board, please just state your name, your address, and remember that there is a 3-minute time limit in consideration of everyone here. Just please try to wrap up your remarks in 3-minute time. Okay, so Tom Sheehan from Waverly. Sure.
My name is Tom Sheehan. I live in Waverly. I've been a resident of the Abington since 1968. I'm a retired teacher from the Abington Heights School District. In fact, I retired 25 years ago this month. I have some questions, and if you can answer them tonight, I'd appreciate it. If not, then next month will do fine. Okay. And I have to, I don't know, apologize maybe. I should have been attending these meetings more frequently than I have. In fact, I haven't been attending any, but I will attempt to attend from now on. So my question, one of my questions is the 1619 project or critical race theory part of the curriculum, any of the curriculum in the Abington Heights School District?
Well, how about I'm running your questions down and then I'll respond. Mr.
I
Sheehan,
should, excuse me, I should have made us, I should have stated earlier, I have a real hearing problem. And as fate would have it, the batteries in my hearing aid are dead. So if I ask you to repeat things,
Sure.
I apologize. It's not you, it's me.
Right. Mr. Sheehan, I'm writing down your questions as you ask them. And then when you're finished, I will do my best to answer any questions that I happen to know the answer to.
Okay.
All right.
You're Dr. May and you're
Mike,
the
yes.
superintendent.
Yeah, that-
You arrived after I left.
and that was my loss, Mr. Sheehan. That was my loss.
You're about ready to retire, right? Okay. And my next question has to do with the incident involving the teacher, I guess in a high school, sociology teacher, or I can't remember his name offhand. I would like to know exactly what happened or what transpired there and what has been done to resolve it. I read things and I don't want to just, take the first thing I hear is the absolute truth. So I would like to know what happened there and what has been done as a consequence of it. And also, I just want to make a statement that I am in favor of dispensing with masks and anything else that has to do with this so-called crisis, okay? So that's about where I am. That's about all I have to say. I will be back next month and as many months after there as I can. And I want to thank you all for taking the time and having the interest to become members of the school board and do what you do. I spent a lot of years involved with the association and negotiations, and I know what a tough job you people have. So I want to thank you very much for doing what you do. Okay.
Thank you.
Try to respond.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'll wait till Mr. Sheehan, I'm going to try to respond. I'm going to try to respond. I don't know if you can. Okay, all right. So first, the 1619 project and critical race theory are not part of our curriculum. All right. Regarding an incident at the high school, these are very difficult times for board members, for the community, and because as a society, we're talking about all kinds of issues, and as in community, certainly within our school district, there are many different voices saying many different types of things. Very often, those different voices are amplified, sometimes in ways that are not constructive, on social media. And in that way, division is created. And so what I will tell you is that, yes, there were some concerns about an assignment that was given at the high school in one of our classes. There was, I believe, some excellent communication among administrators, the parent, the students, and the teacher himself. And in those communications, I think that the better understanding of what was being done and intent was had by all. And my sincere hope is that everyone has moved forward, perhaps not entirely satisfied, but with great respect for different perspectives that were being offered. And finally, as far as dispensing of masks, I think that's an issue the board will be discussing in a matter of moments here.
Can I just think about 30 seconds to make
Sure.
add one little bit more to my comments? Okay. I taught at the middle school, 6th grade, social studies. I am very concerned about the way things have been going in the United States of America, and particularly in public education, as far as American history, American politics. And I blame myself a lot for not doing more than I could have and should have at informing my students of the history of the United. I mean, I taught sixth grade curriculum, which was not American history, but I should have taken the opportunity to teach more about American history, the United States Constitution, and how it all came to be in the first place. So I really am very concerned about the way things are going in public education in the United States. And I'm very concerned, especially about the way things might be going. I'm here to find out about the way it might be going in Abington Heights School District. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
make one comment? Mr. Sheehan, you must have made such an impact because my husband, Peter Tierney, had you many years ago.
I'm not getting it.
You have made an impact with your students because my husband had you many years ago.
Peter, your
Peter
husband,
Tierney.
yeah, okay. Yeah,
And
Peter
he-
was one of my favorite students.
And he speaks of you. quite
Peter was the
often.
best student I ever had.
Oh, we won't tell him that.
Okay. All right. I thank you very much. And I have lived long enough. I mean, when you're teaching, you're planting seeds, you don't know what's going to grow. I've lived long enough to run into a lot of my former students, many of whom have taken the opportunity to come and tell me how much they appreciate what they think I did for them. And I really appreciate it very much. And I'm serious. Peter was one of my favorite students. Peter and all of his sisters.
What a memory. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm probably not going to pronounce your last name correctly, but Renee Shubowitz. Okay.
My name is Renee Sabovitz from North Abington Township. I have a child in the district. And my child was the child that was in that class that not only had that assignment that was very leftist leaning, but was subject to the teacher's comments and ideologies in that class. And I did have one meeting with the principal. I waited 2 weeks. And the comments didn't stop. The teaching methods, if you would call them that, did not change either. And my child was taught that the police should be defunded. My child was taught that drugs should be legalized. My child was taught that if you're Black in America, you should be afraid to leave your house every day. There was an assignment that was to watch a movie that was called The 13th that had very leading questions afterward, asking about how Black Lives Matter is an important organization for the United States. And if this teacher, under the guise of sociology, is going to teach these viewpoints, then why wasn't there a balanced viewpoint of conservative issues? And there are many great Black conservatives who are very well-spoken and out in society. And why weren't their viewpoints ever produced in this class? There was no Candace Owens. There weren't any others, no Ben Carson. And if you look hard enough, you could find these people. They're out there. Their voices are muffled because you don't hear them on mainstream media. But I was very disappointed that it was a lot of opinion in that class. The teacher came in one day wearing a Hawaiian shirt and said, I just found out that if you wear a Hawaiian shirt, you're associated with the Proud Boys. I should go home and burn this. So every child in that class who had a conservative background was made to feel this big, and that's not right. After my second phone call with the principal, then it finally toned down. But had I not spoken up, what would have still been taught in that class for the rest of the year? And is this going on in other classes too? Our kids go in there with open minds and we trust the teachers to be teaching them, not indoctrinating them. And I spoke with you, Mr. Mann, and I also spoke with the principal at the high school. And it seemed to have changed. But how many other students are hearing this in class every day? It's just not right. It doesn't belong. Political indoctrination does not belong in a classroom in a public school. It just does not. And the problem is that these students are quiet about it. They don't want to be canceled. And luckily, my child spoke to me about this. And I know there are other students in that school who are uncomfortable too. I reached out to a few parents and heard stuff that I wasn't happy about either. And I want Abington to be a school that we're proud of.
I think you went, that was time. If you have another, if you want to just finish, but I just want to let you know.
And also, I'm against masks in school. They don't belong there. Vaccinated or not, when you look at the actual statistics, masks don't belong on children. Thank you.
Chris Sespillo? Sespico? Okay, that's it.
Close enough.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
I won't ask you to say my name either.
There's a lot of tough ones out there. Hi, Chris Sespico from 1401 Spyglass Lane. I just want to make an appeal to everybody as far as taking away the mask mandate for the fall and even immediately. I have 5 children in the school district. And the reason we actually came to this area was for the school district. I just wanted to make a couple statements and then so I have 2 children that have medical conditions, and currently they're not able to practice. They are involved in sports. They're not able to practice with the football team indoors. I understand that there's no mask mandate for vaccinated individuals outside, and so that's a step in the right direction. My son is going into the 8th grade, and he's going to be practicing, would like to be practicing with the 9th grade team, and he cannot do so indoors to train with the team. I wanted to say that 90% of, regarding the children, and this is an appeal for the kids, not just my kids, of course, for that 90% of communication is nonverbal, and children need to be able to see each other's faces when they speak. That's one of the important things of development and sociological development as they're growing up. The other thing is that several school districts in Pennsylvania have gone towards unmasking their kids for the fall. And so I just think it's a step in the right direction that we need to be moving to immediately. The other thing is, I think that parents should be able to give their kids a choice, and parents should help make that choice for them. And I don't think the school should be dictating whether the children should be masked indoors or not. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tara Houlihan?
Hi, my name is Tara Houlihan and I'm from North Abington Township. Thank you for letting me speak. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Sheehan. He was my teacher at the middle school and your wife was my English teacher.
Oh, boy.
And I will forever be grateful for both of you. Thank you. And I do agree with what Mr. Sheehan said. It is true. I came here today just to ask to drop the mask mandate. I really didn't think I was going to bring up vaccination because to me, if someone takes the COVID vaccine or any medical procedure, that's a personal decision. That should be between them and their doctor. But if you are talking about making rules for if a child is vaccinated or not, whether they have certain rights or not, like breathing air without a mask on, then I think we have to bring it up. So my first question for you is, how will you know? Are we going to put stickers on children? Are we going to post their vaccination record up in the school? You know, valid questions. And why are we tying these rights to a experimental, emergency use only vaccination that was not FDA approved? Just this week, the WHO came out and they said, we don't know enough about this vaccine to give it to kids. They said, let's wait. And the CDC, I believe tomorrow, is investigating about 300 cases of children and young adults that had enlarged hearts after receiving the vaccine. Now, this isn't something that just happens to your heart and goes away. Most likely, that damage is permanent for life. Children, if you look in the CDC's VAERS database, there are serious injury and even death. So there's issues. If you read the vaccine inserts, the first thing it will say, or one of the first things, is this vaccine has not been studied or shown to prevent transmission. Then it will say this vaccine has not been shown or studied to prevent infection. And then it will say this vaccine may lessen symptoms. That's the actual manufacturer, what they are saying about it. If even in Maine, it was reported today that there have been nearly 4,000 fully vaccinated people that have still tested positive for COVID. So this is not an end all. Like, we all hope it will help, and hopefully it will, but there is a lot of question marks with it so far. It's very new. The CDC recently did the largest study on masks to date. All the major news stations reported the CDC study shows masks work. This piqued my curiosity because I knew, looking into the subject, there are 25 years of OSHA studies that show surgical masks and cloth masks do not stop a virus, do not do anything. They would have to have a specially fitted mask, and there's all kind of rules. So I looked into the details of the study further. And on further review, what the study actually showed.
Excuse me, Sarah, just if you could just, the timer went out, so just try.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. That masks may stop the spread of COVID by only up to 2%. So, and anything under 5% is insignificant. It's not, you can't say for sure it even is meaningful. And then the final thing I'll say is all our kids have basically lost a year of school. You know, my husband was talking to some sales rep managers from Florida and Texas, and they literally laughed at him when he said, oh, my daughter gets to play in a rec game and she doesn't have to wear a mask. They're like, our kids have been going to school all year, no mask, not socially distancing. They've had proms, they've had sporting events, they've had all their activities. It's been normal. And my husband and I kind of sat there and we're like, wow, what did our kids miss out on? You know, and having two kids that graduate, I'm keenly aware of what my children missed out on. And a lot of children and families, they are at their breaking point. They have put up with this past year and they have gotten through it. But if this continues, I don't know. So think about this. Think about your childhood. Think about how fast it went. Kids only get one childhood. That's it. They don't get a do-over. They don't get another one. Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, Teresa Kane, you wrote from Oliphant. I believe it's supposed to, the public portion is supposed to be reserved for Abington School District residents. I'm not really sure if that's a rule or just.
I believe that's the case, but she may be a property owner. I don't know.
It's a public meeting. If you have other parents here, I'm happy to wait.
Yeah, no, I mean, it isn't a question of the waiting. I think to have the right, I don't know. I thought I was
Yeah,
always told.
generally it is my understanding, and I could stand to be corrected, that the public comment is for the
Is
constituents,
reserved
for the constituents and
people.
taxpayers of the school district.
Well, I'm a public, I pay taxes.
Oh,
Maybe not here in the Abingtons, but I pay
right.
taxes.
I don't know. Does anybody have, do we? I'm okay with this.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. I'm going to put my bag here and hopefully I won't forget it when I walk away. If I come back, that's why. Okay, so
Excuse me, what's your name?
Teresa Kane, and I'm from Oliphant.
Okay.
The reason I'm here is, and I know I'm not from the Abingtons, but I am local. And I also have contacts with people who look for school districts. So, Abington does have a good, good reputation as school district. So there are a lot of interactions, whether or not I presently reside here. But at any rate, the reason I wanted to speak was, first of all, I'd like to say, Mr. Sheehan, yes. One of the things that he had said, which was he feels bad because he has not been involved enough. And I think what's going to be happening across the country and is happening across the country is parents, taxpayers, I'm paying for the education of children. My son is not in school anymore, but I still pay taxes on my home, for public education. So it's of interest to me. But I think what happened is there's been an influence for way too long where parents have not been involved. They've been raising their kids, running to programs, working to provide for their families, and have kind of let the influence come from other places, whether it's the governor or the Department of Ed. So I think what's going to be happening, and I know is happening, is parents are now starting to get involved. Citizens are starting to get involved, and we want to have our voice heard. You had some great people here that have given feedback, and I really, really hope that as school board members, you guys will take that feedback, because as this gentleman said, these things are for parents to decide. And because we've abdicated and have stepped back and have not been involved in the school board meetings and having our voices heard, a lot of the roles that the parents should be deciding whether their kids should be in masks, what their health decisions are. That should be the parental role, not, a government position dictating to the students, you have to get vaccinated. Now, I know you're not saying they have to get vaccinated, but I'll give you an example of a family member who's out of state who plays softball. Is so good that got a full scholarship to a college. She took, which broke my heart, because they're saying it could cause infertility. They don't really know yet. Took the vaccination because if she took the vaccination, then if somebody was around her that got COVID, she would not be quarantined and miss her games. So these are the kind of fallout that comes from some of these mandates. But I'm going to just quickly, because I know it's a time and I appreciate you letting me speak, but I think these are important things to hear. I'm not sure why we've decided on masks in a lot of the school districts or to bring vaccine clinics into the schools. I know there's grant money that's coming down from the PDE. I know there was money that was signed for last year. Again, there's another letter that has come out that says schools have to sign by July 30th for these grant monies, which is then asking for a health plan, which is the same thing, masks.
The timer did go up, just so you know.
Okay, quarantines, social distancing. I mean, it's all the same stuff. And so people are becoming aware and they're saying no more. So my understanding is, and I have to give you just some numbers, but my understanding is, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but I understand that it's been stated by, I don't know if it was the Secretary of
I'm so sorry.
Secretary of
It
Health.
doesn't sound like you're coming to a
I-
conclusion. Can you come to your conclusion, please? Thank
Yes,
you.
but as far as the grant money, my understanding is you do not have to do these steps to get that grant money. We thought that school boards had to, these health plans, but my understanding is they do not. Do you know if that's true? Okay.
You know what, I'm really sorry. I think that we've given a lot of courtesies, given that you are really supposed to be speaking in our meeting, so.
Okay. Just so you know, our deaths in this state 56% of the deaths in the state were over age 80. 87% of the deaths were over 65. Most of them happened in nursing homes. There's only been 10 deaths of children 19 and under in 12.7 million people. Thank you for I appreciate it.
Okay.
Those are
Thank
very
you.
important numbers. We've got a 99.999% survival rate. And even in the nursing homes where it was very deadly, 99.98%. And there's 3 or 4 solid cures.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Was there anyone else? Anybody else? Did we have anybody online? Dr. Mayor,
Oh,
that
that's a
wanted
good point. Let me
to,
check.
Have their hand raised?
No. No?
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to our action discussion items. Can I have a motion to approve the bills
So moved.
Second.
on the question? Roll call?
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman,
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, Mr. Medensky, may we have the treasurer's report?
Yes, you may. We started the month with a total cash balance of $17,447,274. We had total revenues for the month of $1,494,320, which about 60% of that was from wage taxes. And the net disbursements for the month were $3,398,459, which gives us a cash balance going forward of $15,543,135.
Okay, thank you. The motion to approve
So moved.
Second.
on the question? Roll call?
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezowski.
Yes.
7-0.
Okay, we are going to insert as item B.1, the motion, Dr. Mann, did you want to read it?
Well, yes, we could read this, and then if there's discussion or if there's a need to amend, the board
Okay.
can certainly do so, but just to get something out there, we would request the board to consider a motion to amend the Abington Heights School District Health and Safety Plan to allow fully vaccinated individuals the option to wear or not wear facial coverings at all school-sponsored activities. Unvaccinated or partially vaccinated individuals have the option to wear or not wear facial coverings at all outdoor school-sponsored events and activities. Abington Heights does not track nor require documentation of fully vaccinated status.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Dr. Mann, I just have a question on the second to last sentence. I mean, is it necessary to put it in the amendment that unvaccinated or partially vaccinated have the option? I mean, don't they have that option anyway?
Well,
Regardless,
at this point, they do not have the option not to wear. Under our
health and safety.
Under our health and safety plan, unvaccinated individuals currently are required to wear masks at all times.
So I think just to back up for just a
Right.
second, it's my understanding or recollection, our health and safety plan is submitted to the state,
It is.
which we have all approved. And so we are bound by the health and safety plan
Right.
until we make a motion to amend any of the provisions.
That is correct.
So we are bound by our health and safety plan to require masks at all.
so
The
this,
vaccine didn't
okay,
even exist when the health and safety plan was.
right, so we amended it. So
So
this
now we're-
undoes what we already amended.
Exactly. So now we are.
Very good, thank you.
propos-
Yep.
We're giving a
Right.
motion. So if we don't say that, Mr. Robeson, I think then that the default would be that they would have to continue.
That's right.
To
I
be
didn't
amended.
realize that there was an amendment after that that said there was a requirement.
Right.
And this undoes that requirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. So does that, I mean, does anybody, does this make sense? Do we have any other clarification?
I think we need clarity on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Mayor. You're suggesting that fully vaccinated individuals have the option to wear or not wear a facial covering at all school-sponsored activities. So that would mean indoors or outdoors.
Yes, currently, under the amendment that was adopted on June 2nd by the board, we allowed fully vaccinated, prior to that, you had to wear a mask at all times on school district. On June 2nd, the board amended the plan to allow fully vaccinated individuals the opportunity not to wear masks if they chose to outdoors. This is the next step along the way that will allow fully vaccinated individuals not to wear masks should they choose, both at outdoors and indoors, which is the expansion of the policy.
Okay. To continue, unvaccinated or partially vaccinated individuals have the option to wear or not wear facial coverings at all outdoor school-sponsored events and activities.
That is correct. Currently, unvaccinated individuals are required to wear masks at all times in all circumstances. And this, if adopted, would relax that to allow unvaccinated individuals not to wear masks, should they choose, when engaged in outdoor activities for the district.
Thank you for the clarification.
So as we are getting through the summer and seeing how everything is going, obviously we could amend, but at this time, is there a reason to continue requiring the indoor at all? Like, or is it, like school is out, right? So what's happening indoors that is,
Right. We have summer school, for example.
Okay.
And our sense as an administration is that we are very comfortable, and we have been uncomfortable for a long time,
right,
seeing our younger kids wearing masks
Right.
when outdoors.
right,
And so, but we could not, the district did not have, nor the board had the authority to change that
right,
until just very recently.
Right.
And so our thought is that, yes, we'll take the step, contravening CDC direction, by the way, but we think supported, in allowing unvaccinated students not to wear masks when outside. But we still think that there is justification to ask students to wear, unvaccinated students to wear masks while in the classroom setting.
okay, so what the state is saying, as of June 28th, they're dropping the mandates?
When, as of June 28th, the responsibility for these types of decisions with respect to the health and safety plan reverts to the school district. Prior to the 28th, and I think they moved it up a few days, but essentially prior to the 28th, the district did not have discretion with
Right.
respect to unvaccinated students and mask wearing.
So in a couple of days, at our discretion, we can
You can,
decide.
whatever this, you know, the sky's the limit, so to speak. There are no limitations on what the board can and cannot decide to do.
So if we were to, say, effective June 28th, we are going to just have no more masks. And then things began ticking up, or something changed, the variants became more contagious or more deadly, we could then pull that back.
The district, the board can alter the plan in any way at any time that it so desires. At this point, administration is not comfortable in recommending no masks in the classroom setting for unvaccinated students.
And why is that? What?
Well, yes,
Please, yeah, just.
yeah, there is, and again, we have great respect for people who have different views, right? But COVID still does exist in our community. Students in the classroom are in close proximity in a room that is limited in space. And we have evidence that we've posted on our website from MIT that supports the fact that mask wearing does mitigate transmission. Further, we have observed our students this year become very, very sick. And in at least one instance, life-threatening sick because of COVID. Further, we have students who need access to summer school, who are immunocompromised, who have all kinds of other at-risk medical conditions that puts them at a much higher risk than the average elementary student who admittedly is not at high risk for serious complications. But in the context of trying to come to the best view we can, administration is comfortable with recommending at this point that unvaccinated students not wear masks outdoors. By the end of the summer, as more information becomes available, we may become comfortable to recommend as we go back, it's okay not to wear a mask. But at this point, I cannot come to the board and say it's okay in the classroom setting not to wear masks for unvaccinated students.
So we can revisit this, getting closer to opening of the school year to see what is going on in the community health-wise, and then we can make another decision if, so we have that
Yes.
ability to make a decision before the school starts.
Yes, and I think, Mrs. Tierney, if you look back essentially to last March, you could see that every meeting that we have had, we have looked at the information that's been available to us, imperfect information, and certainly imperfect direction from people who guide us, who are supposed to be helping. And you can see progress in adjusting. And very often, if not very often, at all times, we were ahead of what we were recommended to do. Right? Were we open from the very first day? We were not, but we were concerned. All right, and we had limited information available to us. And I think anyone who views us this fairly could certainly disagree at any step along the way with what we have done. But I don't think many would say that we haven't been deliberative, we haven't been transparent, and we haven't been public, and we haven't cited information that supports our point of view, even though we acknowledge at all times there are other points of view different than ours. So I've said from the beginning, I am not an epidemiologist, I am not a scientist, but all of us have been thrust into that position. And in my estimation, imperfect as it is, I am not prepared to recommend no masks in the classroom setting for unvaccinated students at this time.
Are the classrooms air conditioned?
No. They're
So-
ventilated, but not air conditioned.
Well, all right, but I mean, I guess I'm just wondering about, like, I don't know how many kids are unvaccinated in a very hot room wearing a mask.
Well, all of them at the elementary level will be unvaccinated. Any student under 12 is unvaccinated at this point.
Dr. Mahan, has your staff that's doing the summertime education, have they weighed in on this proposal?
Well, we have circulated this through administration, and we are comfortable with this recommendation as it is now. Again, we will respect whatever decision the board makes, but as we've reviewed it at this time, this is where I think it's safe to say administration is with respect to the recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we all understand what it is, so let's just vote on it. Right? Is that what we have to do?
Yeah. unless somebody-
on
I
the
mean,
motion to amend
well,
the-
The point is to deliberate, you know, if somebody has any questions or concerns that they want people to think about before voting, I think now's the time. If everybody's ready to vote, we can vote. I mean, everybody ready to vote? Did you want to comment, Jean? Do you have any comments? No? You usually do.
No, I'm planning to support the administration's recommendation and continue to discuss this at every possible opportunity. I mean, you know, at my work, we still are masked. We see a vulnerable population of patients, and as much as they're to some degree unhealthy, you know, when they come in. And I think that the summer school program probably has a high percentage of vulnerable students. I think it's the nature of those, who end up in the summer program. And the hospitalized patients currently with COVID are the unvaccinated population. There's a Delta variant that is definitely affecting a younger population. People are still getting COVID. You don't know who it's going to be detrimental to and for how long. Seen it run the spectrum, and anything's possible. And I'm not willing to take too big a chance. Try to be reasonable without being irresponsible.
So I'm not like keeping really close ties on the statistics, but I think what you just said, and I think I've heard this being repeated in the news, the people who are getting sick are the unvaccinated people. So regardless of whether the vaccine is preventing a positive test is not the point. The point is unvaccinated people are getting sick, right? Is that the point? I mean, is that? No. But I mean, is that? Well, it's relevant in the fact that we're saying unvaccinated people should wear masks, and I think that supports it. If it's the unvaccinated people that are getting sick, it supports the reason you want unvaccinated people to continue to wear masks. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Right.
Right? Is that the gist of it?
Well, we are very comfortable in saying that those who are vaccinated, and there's been a lot of, I've actually shared some that are very much in an excellent position with respect to the pandemic. They don't get sick, and if they do get sick, the symptoms are not as nearly, they don't end up in Mrs. Cadman's hospital or Dr. Cadman's hospital. And however, to the extent that people are unvaccinated and are exposed to COVID, and I will say, community transmission is down, the levels are down, but it still is here among us. And the disease is changing. And again, my hope is that everyone will come to school in the fall without a mask on. But I am just not prepared to say that because all of those students are unvaccinated and vulnerable to transmission, particularly those who are at high medical risk. Yes, transmission is different among young children than among adults and certainly elderly, but transmission does occur. And masks, in all the information that I have read, mitigate transmission. And while we have posted on our website under our COVID section studies that indicated, again, I didn't write the studies, I only know what I read, but very talented individuals and medical professionals have written about the mitigating effect of masking, of ventilation, of space within a room, and of lower respiration rates that affect how long you can be in continuous contact with an affected individual and not be at risk of contracting COVID. And I do think there's some pretty strong research. I encourage anyone to go to our website and read it, and then maybe come back and tell us where we're missing. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, roll call. Wait, we're not changing it. We're voting on the motion as written, like you questioned it, but we haven't changed or eliminated any statements. Okay.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Dr. Cadman?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri?
Yes.
Mrs. Pashawski?
Yes.
7-0.
Okay, so we can take our mess up.
Yes, indeed we can, because if we are. And while that may not be as much progress as we hope, it is progress, and we will continue to make it as the time unfolds. Okay, and I think for the personnel report, are there any objections in taking it as a consent?
None.
Consent time? Okay,
Please do.
and because perhaps a number of people are hoping to see or hear their names read, I will simply read the names so people know that they're included, and then we could just in total vote on it without having a number of different votes. So under resignations, we regret that Rebecca Burdette and Jacqueline Pensavento have resigned as teachers. Under resignations, We have Elizabeth Siva Kumar as a teacher's aide. Mrs. Rosinski Craig is requesting leave of absence. And under appointments, we have Christopher Seddon, Kaylee Shigelski, Amanda Fika, Lindsay Yakavazi Hickey, Lisa Bath, Cassandra Hozowski, Catherine Owens, Kelly Tighe, Alexis McGee, Jessica Frazier, Christine Sheehan, Jacqueline Crut, Caitlin Rando, Julie Klee, Mara Grad, Olivia Barkowski, Morgan Salva, Sarah Loughnane, Savannah Lloyd, Amy Marcho, and Hannah Neswander. And I do want to take a point of privilege and say I want to thank the board for their many, many hours devoted to the hiring process. I want to thank the administration for their long devotion to the work of getting what is a list of extremely talented educators that we are so proud to be welcoming to our district. So thank you, Mr. Petrowski. That's our personnel report. We request the board to approve it.
So moved.
Second. Question?
I just had a question as to how many of these new hires represent a new position versus, replacements. Because I do want it to be known that we have increased.
We have
you
in
know,
total,
subscription.
and I don't know if they're all captured here, but we are adding 8 positions this year to support the needs of our students, both academically with respect, for example, expanding our math department at the high school to meet an overwhelming demand for computer science. Our board has authorized us to expand guidance services at elementary schools to try to address the social emotional needs and challenges that students have experienced as a result of the pandemic. So we are very grateful to the board for this. In total, we have been fortunate to be able to add 8 individual professional staff members to our district. And I know I speak for Dr. Vitale in saying they will be put to good use, and they are extraordinarily talented people as we request the board to bring them on board tonight.
I'd just like to mention, I just want to commend the administration. I want to say this publicly because I don't realize what this administration does to have a teacher or an employee of Abington. They go through a 3-step process, 3 interview process, one of them teaching a lesson. And then the final, of course, interview is in front of the boards. But it is grueling and it's a lot of time. So I commend them for what they do, because that's why I think Abington kind of gets the cream of the crop. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medeski.
Roll call?
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And then we request the board authorize payment of 2 EDR positions to Kristen Ambrose as middle school yearbook advisor and Rebecca Hetzel as high school band activity director.
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call?
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
7-0.
And I want to take this occasion to recognize Emily Dillon, having received tenure and is now a professional employee. So congratulations to her. No action is needed. Under letter D, we consider a motion to approve Eric Boylan and Rebecca Hetzel for their fine work with Freaky Friday play at the high school.
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call?
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
7-0.
And we did mention this, Mr. Medensky. And so sneaking up on you very quickly, we request the board to approve board treasurer, and I don't think I'm out of line in suggesting it be Mr. Medensky.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Medensky.
I'll abstain.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 with 1 abstention.
And we request the board to approve the 2021-2022 intergovernmental agreement for special education services as contained in item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And request the board to approve a memorandum of understanding for Northeast Educational Unit for Title III for the 2021-2020 school year as contained in item number 2.
So moved.
Second. Question? Roll call?
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And request the board to approve the disposal of a TV asset 000268.
So moved.
Second. On the question? Roll call?
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And we request the board to approve a motion to extended school year additional support as contained in item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call?
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
It's nice to see some of our new hires signing up for this summer school support. So thank you for that. Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Their arms are only slightly sore. It's just they're only slightly sore. And we consider a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Abington Heights School District and Mansfield University's Early Start Program as contained in item number 4.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? I just want to say this is another tremendous opportunity. Glad to see this. More of them, hopefully.
Yes, agree.
Roll call?
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And we request the board to approve the athletic bids as contained in item number 5.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yeah. More detail, because I know we have things here. We don't need it tonight, but.
Well, I think Mrs. O'Day would tell you there's a great deal of detail, a very significant spreadsheet, line by line, item by item.
Okay.
Happy to be able to share that with you.
Yeah, it just, we got the list and it's like, okay, got a name here, we just gave a lot of money. That's okay. That's
All
fine.
right. I can send you the spreadsheets if you'd like, the tally. Yeah.
I just wanted to like a little more detail.
Oh, sure. If you want that, I can do that for all the bids. Okay.
Only the big one.
It's available.
Roll call?
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And we request the board to approve the agreement between WVIA and Abington Heights School District for the 2020, 2021, 21-22, and 22-23 school years for the Enhancement Scholar Program as contained in item number 6.
So moved.
On the question? Roll call?
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And we ask the board to consider a motion to dispose of outdated, unused curricular resources resulting from a recent review cleaning of storage areas in the district administration office. You may have noticed this as you walked past the
I
gym
did.
going downstairs. Most of this has actually gone out to our teachers who came in and picked up resources they wanted. But with thanks to Dr. Vitale, this was long overdue, and we thank her for that.
So moved. Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Robeson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski,
Yes.
7-0.
And we request the board to approve the agreement for the provision of extended school year services with New Story Academy for students 1A, 2A, 3A, as contained in item number 7.
So moved.
Second. On the question? Roll call?
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski,
Yes.
7-0.
And we request the board to approve the 2021-2022 Homestead Farmstead exclusion resolution as contained in item number 8.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski,
Yes.
7-0.
And we request the board to approve the Abington Heights School District 2021-2022 school calendar as contained in item number 9.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
And we request the board to approve the 2021-2022 Abington Heights School District proposed final budget as contained in item number 10, containing no tax increase and an expansion of services provided to our students.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
I'd like to compliment the administration for putting together a very good budget. Mr. Mirabelli, congratulations.
I agree. Roll call?
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski,
Yes.
7-0.
And we request the board to approve the settlement agreement between Abington Heights School District and student number 8X as contained in item number 11.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mrs. Pusateri,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
No, and the reason for it is I'm not against the allocation of resources to the student in this particular case. But I do find it odd that the attorney's fees is the exact same as the next case that's going to be approved. And they are totally different cases. And it's mathematically impossible. So I don't agree with it. I support the allocation of resources to the student, but there are some serious questions into the attorney's fees. So I'm voting no.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
You said Mrs.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Pashowski. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Motion carries 6-1.
And we request the board to approve the settlement agreement between Abington Heights School District and student 9X as contained in number 12.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call?
Mr. Robeson,
No, for the same reason as item 11 in letter R.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
Dr. Cadman.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mrs. Pusateri.
Yes.
Mrs. Pashowski.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
And that concludes the action items, Mr. Pashowski. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, wait, the health and safety plan? Is that?
Which we moved that up. Remember we moved that up.
Oh, that was the amendment. Okay, we have no information. Is there any new business? Old business?
Old business. Fall coaches. Dr. Mann, you were looking into field hockey.
I was. Mr. Snyder, I was looking into it and failed to do so in spite of being requested 2 or 3 times. How are we with field hockey for the fall? Do we have a coach?
At this time, the other coach is the coach that we hired last year.
Okay. Good, good to know. Thank you,
Great,
Mr.
great to
Smith.
hear. Thanks.
Sorry, I forgot. Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn? All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for
joining us.
coming.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go downstairs.
One signature from Michelle.
Okay.
So I have preliminary and final.
Yes. Michelle, can we get you? Well, actually, we'll have you.
Okay.
So what we did was, we set a threshold.
Oh, Jessica, good to see you. Now, what was cited your absence?
What is it? Wait, oh, that's when you got one.
Yes,
Does it say present?
it does say president, but he
The
But
was,
he
issue
went-
is,
he-
well,
did he
we
put-
set a threshold of $10,000.
not because I care, but there is a
Right.
bureaucrat.
This is
in-
all we're gonna get
Oh, let me get this.
You know what I mean? So
So
we-
maybe what I